Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to talk to you today about your film that made me cry earlier today. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you. I'm glad it
Well, because
affected you.
it's this beautiful thing that I think people don't always think about it, that like grounding sci-fi and making it super emotional. And it doesn't have to just be like aliens in action. And I love that about what you did with this film. And I wanted to hear more about like because you wrote the script as well, right? I wanted to hear more about like where this idea came from for you and why you wanted to make such a grounded film.
Um, I think, yeah, I do think people get lost in the potential of sci-fi. I
Yeah.
remember one of the notes like of like the action or like big VFX, and I remember like early on in the development process, some people were like, "What if we, showed the machine working and the particles going and all this stuff?" And I'm like, I don't care about that. I care about people making choices and the effects on their real world. And I think why this stayed so grounded for me was because I actually had the idea for like a gun that would fire a bullet into the past like a while ago, and I just didn't know what to do with it
Oh,
because it felt so big. And like I was like, oh, I don't want to just change the world 16 times and show us like what happens if go the man in the high castle or this, that, and the other.
yeah.
And then what yeah. And so when I became a dad, suddenly I started grappling with how scary and uncertain the world felt. And I was trying to sort of wrestle with that. And I wanted to tell us, you do that through a film. And I suddenly occurred to me, what if I could use this weird, crazy, big sci-fi idea and use it in this very personal way about a woman just trying to get her life back to a way she understands and wants it to be.
It's amazing. And I love that like you've had the idea and then fatherhood kind of pushed you into thinking about that. How old is your child? I would love to know.
Now he's much older because I wrote this a long time ago, but now he's almost 7. He's almost 8. He's seven
Oh,
and a half. Yeah.
whoa. Okay, so this has been percolating for a long time then. So it's really it must be
No,
super
I
exciting.
I wrote it actually. Yeah, it's a huge. I wrote it right after the Ballad of Lefty Brown came out, and that was when it came from.
Oh.
And originally, I actually optioned it to Paramount and Bad Robot, and we developed it there for a couple of years, and they were trying to make a very different version of the story that never quite worked. And what's great is once they realized it didn't quite work, they let me get my original script back, and that was 2020, and we were all set to make it in 2020, and then we all know what happened in 2020.
Things happen.
And so it took us another 2 more years to then get it going for real again.
So did you go to Fantasia and see it play at Fantasia?
I did. It was my first time seeing it on the big screen with an audience, and it was amazing just watching people and seeing them. I hadn't actually seen it with a group of people before ever, even rough cuts. I would like hide. So it was such an amazing experience, and Fantasia has such wonderful audiences.
They really do. What was your experience directing this cast? I mean, Judy Greer is incredible, but this whole cast is just so it's a small cast, but they work so well together, especially as these scenarios change throughout Aporia and how everything is just like, I love how much of a group they are. I thought it was just going to be Judy Greer, but really it's like this group of adults trying to figure out how to live their lives. So what was it like directing this group of actors? It seems like a treat to watch them work together.
It was directing Judy Greer, Eddie Gathegi, and Payman Mahdi, and Faith Herman was just incredible. It was such an incredible experience. They, one of the things I like to do when working with my actors is like make sure that like we create a character that feels true to all of us. So I would sit down with each actor individually. I would talk through the script, talk through the scenes, not do like line readings, none of that. Yes, just like let's talk. Let's talk about the emotions you're feeling. Let's talk about what I'm
Okay.
trying to achieve. Let's talk about what feels true to you. And then we'll find something in those moments that feel true to both of us. And once we got all that, sort of we were all sort of 100% clear on the characters and who they were and what they were feeling at different times. Once we were on set, it was just about leading into the chemistry of the act of everyone together.
That's
Um,
amazing. That's so cool. I just directed
Yeah.
my first feature, so it's always cool. Now I'm like really curious about everyone else's processes of working
Congratulations.
through things. Thank you so much. So it's just cool to hear how people work with actors and like get into character and kind of letting the collaborating with actors and seeing what they want to bring to characters too, I think is always so interesting because I'm hearing
That's
how
my
this
favorite part of
experience
it.
of like where you sit and you're with the script in your own head. And then when other people bring it to life, you're like, oh my God, there's things I could never even have imagined coming out of these characters. Like you've brought this to life even more than I could have expected.
I think, it's like you create these things in your head and you have a sense of who they are, but it takes
Yeah.
an actor to really give it a beating heart. That's why casting is so important. That's why having a good relationship with your actors is so important. And, understanding like finding actors who are, nimble. Like one of the things I
Yeah.
loved about Faith Herman when we were casting her is like we actually got to do auditions, and she
Oh,
plays
cool.
Riley, and just watching as she could react and take notes and take direction and the little choices she would make. And that way, like as we sort of talked through stuff, we could find a character that would find the character in those sort of in between.
That's so cool. So I'm curious, when was there a scene in particular that you had written and you were nervous to shoot that you were so excited that you were able to pull off or was better than you could have imagined it when you wrote it?
Let me think. I think the reunion scene, when Mal and Sophie are reunited. To me, I didn't know how that would work 100% when I wrote it, and I actually overwrote it, I think. And we went down and we were shooting it, and like right when we were shooting it, I sort of had figured out how I wanted it to feel, and then Judy came up to me and was like, I don't think I would be able to say all this stuff that's written here. I think I would not be able to say anything. I mean, I would just be so overwhelmed with emotion and just be so happy and so, joyful that I wouldn't be able to speak. And so she and I we went through together, and we brought Eddie over, and we just like went through the scene and like cut, and allowed Eddie to play off of the emotions she was showing rather than saying. And I think that scene was sings because of it.
That's so cool. That isn't it cool when you can like, wow, this like the emotions really do sing even without anything being said. That's such a cool experience too to get to watch that happen with your work too.
It's an incredible experience. I think also like writing nowadays, you end up writing more because people want to like when it's the written
Yeah.
word, people don't, they need it, read it like twice as opposed to seeing it once.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
And it's just easier sometimes not to show rather than tell. Sometimes.
where'd you come up with that phrase?
I know. I'm a genius. I don't know, it just came to me. But I'd love to hear also, like when you were writing this, was there, and as you were, directing, were there any films that served kind of as, inspiration either in theme or in vibe or in both?
Yeah, I would say the movies that we referenced a lot when I was the two movies well, really three movies I referenced a lot while writing it were Primer, just because of the way it handled sci-fi and
Yeah.
in a very smart but also grounded way. Though I
Yeah.
sort of always told people I didn't want this to, like Primer is so smart, you need those like YouTube experts to understand it,
Primer's
right?
too smart. It's like,
Yeah,
wait, what's going, my brain is melting out of my ears.
right, which is so cool about it. But like I didn't want it
Yeah.
to be that. And then my other reference was like Blue Valentine. I
Okay.
just
Yeah.
really wanted it to be like this story of a relationship and of two people. And so I looked at that a lot. I thought about that while I was thinking about it, while I was writing. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
I
Mind
was
was,
gonna see, I was wondering if you were gonna bring that up. I got very big. Eternal Sunshine is one of my favorite movies of all
yeah,
time, and I got big Eternal Sunshine vibes from this, which I was really into.
totally. Like I think Charlie Kaufman is like a genius writer. I mean, when I early in my career, I got to like work on adaptation a little bit that he wrote. And I
No
was just like, that's
way.
just the best
What'd you
script
do
I've
in
ever.
adaptation?
I was an assistant to the producers.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that movie's
Yeah.
wild. I love that movie. So that's
The
so
script
cool.
I think is even wilder and cooler. I like this. I love the script just because
Oh,
the
we
way
need to
it's
read the
written. Like it's got
script.
the movie, but like the script is just like seeing it on the page and then playing with all the stuff it's playing with on the page
Yeah,
is so rad.
that's so
Um,
cool.
but yeah, and then I said the other movie that when we got sort of closer to directing that became sort of I'm blanking on the word, reference, was Rust and Bone, the French movie, with just like
Oh,
how we wanted to capture it, the use of handhelds, the use of just making it feel very like this lived in world. That was important to
cool.
us.
That's amazing. Well, also looking at your filmography, the past two films you've worked on have been like westerns, like vibes, right? So why transitioning now into like to sci-fi? It was just time. I was curious because it's like it feels like such a big shift in the three films you've made so far.
Well, the first film I made when I was like, all right, I'm going to stop producing and become a writer director. I was like, well, I've always wanted to make a Western. You never know if we're going to do this more than once. So I'm going to make a Western. And so that's what my
Cool.
first film was, a Western. I mean, it's my favorite genre. And then as I was trying to figure out what to do next,
Cool.
I had that character of Lefty Brown in my head
Okay.
for so long that I just like, I needed to get him onto the screen.
Wow.
So I made a second Western. And then I don't only love Westerns. I'm a big sci-fi guy. I love noir. I love action. So I was like, all right, I want to tell a story using a different genre. But I think it's funny because like making Westerns informs all aspect of filmmaking. So that was really, what I learned making those movies was really helpful for making this.
That's so cool. I love that. Are you a horror like are you a genre film person? Do you like horror films too? Or are you like more of a sci-fi person? Like where do you
I'm more of a
fall on
sci-fi
that?
person. I like
Okay.
sci-fi. I like action. I like a good slasher. I like a
Okay.
vampire movie.
Cool.
I like
Cool,
more
cool,
like
cool.
I kind of like not horror that feels like, I don't know, a little more like of a roller coaster vibe than
Okay.
like super creepy. I love like From Dusk Till Dawn vibe.
Okay.
Like that's
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
cool
yeah.
to
You like a
me.
good eventful horror movie that doesn't stop the whole time. You want like that. Okay. I
Right?
appreciate that.
Yeah, like a more like dealing with trauma horror movie that just makes me feel really uncomfortable the whole time is not my jam.
Fair. There's a lot of those nowadays, but there are some really
Yeah.
fun ones too. Have you seen Talk to Me yet?
I have not yet. I feel like
Okay.
that falls into the dealing with trauma phase. That
A little bit, but not as much as you would think, I promise. But
okay.
it's gory and creepy. It's like Ghosts, if
Okay.
that's something that you're into.
I can deal with ghosts. I'm not a huge
Okay,
gore guy. I'm not going to say that. Like I like the
okay,
fear. The Halloween
cool,
remakes are really fun.
cool. And
Yeah.
so my last question for you is do you remember the first horror movie you ever saw that really scarred you for life, that terrified you as a kid?
I remember I never saw it, but I saw a trailer for it and it scarred me for life off the trailer, which was Nightmare on Elm Street. I couldn't sleep for
The
days.
trailers, man. Oh, the trailers always got me too. Like before
Yeah.
even I saw the movies as a kid, the trailers.
No, seeing
Wow,
the
it got
trailer
to
for
you.
that movie terrified me. Like I would had to logically convince myself that like I don't live on Elm Street, so they're not gonna come get me at night.
No, that's awful. Now I have to watch the original trailer because I can't even remember what the trailer is of
I
that
think
movie,
just the
but
very idea of it.
that's true. Yeah, that was me and Chucky. I never saw Child's Play until I was like almost 30. But I was terrified of dolls because of everything I knew about Chucky the doll. Like, I don't need to know anything else. I just know it's terrifying.
Right? It was like that sort of thing terrified me. But then like I could watch The Evil Dead, and I was like, it's cool, scary. But it was like, I'm not going to many cabins and woods like that. So it
Well,
just feels a
it's silly.
little.
I feel like Evil Dead is also so silly. Well, the second
Yeah.
one, not the first
The
one,
second one, the
but
first one is terrifying.
it is terrifying. I haven't, oh my gosh. Anyway, now I'm just going down thinking about this movies that terrified me as a kid. Well, Jared, thank you so much for chatting with me today about Aporia. Aporia premiered at Fantasia, but it's coming to VOD on August 11th, everybody. So
It's
if
coming
you're
to theaters on August
theaters,
11th.
pardon me, I'm so sorry, theaters on August 11th. So if y'all are looking for a heartbreaking, beautiful, grounded sci-fi film a la Aaron Benson and Justin Moorhead, check it out. Thank you again, Jared, for chatting.
Thank you. I'm glad the movie spoke to you again. This was really fun.